and welcome. We are in the north side of the country of Israel, just a few kilometers from the border with Lebanon actually. We're standing next to a beautiful place known as the Hermon stream, coming down just from under the big Hermon mountain, the highest mountain of the ones we have of Israel. In this specific area over here, in the 2nd century BC, started getting built up a new area that was known at the time as Panias. Panias was actually named after Pan, who was an idol in the Greek mythology. We know that he looked as the bottom part of his body was half goat, the upper part was half man. He was very known for walking around the hillsides, playing his flute, seducing young ladies, as the stories go in the Greek mythology. Not a very moral figure, as to say, and a lot to do with sexual immorality. Specifically with that figure, we are thinking of a place that is putting that figure in their sights and naming their place after this person. This is actually letting us know of what people here in this place would be focusing on, what they would be turning into. So we're getting the understanding that Ceasarea Philippi wouldn't have been one of the moral places, and a lot to do with idol worship, sexual immorality that was happening in this place. In the late 1st century BC, Philip comes here, who was the son of Herod the Great, and he really upbrings this whole area, building a lot of what is the city center at the time of the whole region, and he would name it after Caesar, but also after himself, a custom that was done a few times in that era at the time. He names it Ceasarea Philippi. So not only this area that we're standing here, but we know that the whole region was known as Ceasarea Philippi. We actually look at the Herodian family. If you're thinking that your family is not so good, go and read a little bit about the Herodian family. You'll see that you have a lot to be thankful for. It was a pretty immoral family as well. So the chain of immorality continues even through the name, as we see right here in Panias, later on becomes Ceasarea Philippi. Not of all places, Jesus chooses this place to come and to teach his disciples a very valuable lesson. So we're going to continue on and walk a bit more in the site and learn about the lesson that he passes on to his disciples right here. Alright, so this is the main temple area and the main idol worship right here in the area of Ceasarea Philippi. You see some of it's carved straight into the bedrock. Some of the temple areas that were built right here were actually right next to the dancing goat temple that was right here, and the temple for the idol Pan that was going on. Some of it and some of the idol worship that was going on there is pretty similar to some of the idol worship we're probably seeing today around the world, with the blood and the cutting of yourself and the dancing that goes a bit out of control. This is what was probably happening in the temple to the idol Pan. And this was the cave, also known as the Cave of Pan. Right here, a bit next to it, was also a temple to Augustus Caesar, built in the time of Herod the Great, but of course remained here in the time of his son Philip, which builds Caesarea Philippi, as we already talked about. And right here, somewhere in this region, not of all places, not Jerusalem, not Judah, as we already said, Yeshua brings his disciples to teach them a very valuable lesson. And we read about this in Matthew chapter 16, in verse 13. When it says, when Yeshua came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, so somewhere in this region right here, we're seeing some hills. They might have been walking on these hills right there, seeing the mouth of the cave and the whole idol worship that is going on here. He asked his disciples, saying, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Yona, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So he brings them right here next to where such severe idol worship is going on, to teach them that lesson about his messiahship, that the Messiah of Israel is right there, he's with them, he's walking with them. Later on he will give them authority, and he will tell them that the gates of Hades will not overpower them. And so right here some people have been thinking that might have been that the name of the mouth of this cave that we see here was the gate of Hades, encouraging the disciples that even in this severe environment of idol worship, they can go on with what God called them to do, and they can do it with authority, not being afraid and not being worried. And it's a very big encouragement for all of us today, as we all might be in very similar situations as well. So I hope this is a real encouragement to all of you out there, that even if we are living in ungodly and maybe even idol-worshipping environments, this proclamation here that Peter said, that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, if that proclamation is alive within us, then what Yeshua said to Peter wasn't just for Peter, it was for us as well. And he will give us power through the help of the Holy Spirit to overcome these challenges and to live a life for God's glory and be a light in this world. We'd like to invite you to join one of our next episodes. It's going to be regarding the rock. When Yeshua said, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. Was this only to Peter as well? We are going to see in one of our next episodes that the idea of the rock is like a thread going through Old Testament prophecies in the Tanakh. So please join us as we'll be looking at some of these prophecies and talking a bit more about that beautiful idea of the rock. Join us again, and we will be right here in this channel.